Mike Joy's tweet from last week. Jason, you want to read that?
Mike Joy tweeted last week, "Our sport has always had funded drivers, funded in quotes. But it's high time a few of these privileged kids, powered by daddy's pile of cash, realize the whole sport doesn't exist just to make their dreams come true. Take some time to learn from those who've worked their way to the top." Brett, spot on, spot off.
Look, it certainly seemed to me that this tweet was directed at Noah Gragson. And it seemed to me that Mike Joy was taking a shot, essentially saying daddy's money paid for Noah Gragson to live out his dreams, that Noah's never worked for anything or done anything. And Mike's certainly entitled to his opinion. And Mike's obviously been around the sport and seen a lot more than I've seen. But the reality is every single driver in this sport at the Cup Series level has a trail of money behind them from somewhere. And the majority of those people started off racing on daddy's money. It's just the way it is. I mean, Clint's dad owned a record service. Elliott Sadler's dad owned car dealerships. Dale Jr.'s dad is Dale Earnhardt. If you're trying to tell me that a lot of these Cup guys right now started out at the lower feeder series and found their own sponsors and worked their way up, hey, I'll buy it. But I don't think that's the case at all. I look at NASCAR, Cup Series, racing in general, and here's the reality of it. I have a kid that's 8 years old. I can afford to go buy a baseball glove, and a pair of cleats, and we can go play baseball. And he's a good little baseball player. I cannot afford to buy a go-kart, tires, a trailer, a truck to pull the trailer, a mechanic to work on it, and do that every single week for 40 weeks a year. That is very expensive. All of these guys have a trail of money behind them. Where I'm most disappointed in this tweet is, if you're going to subtweet somebody, just say their name. Like, I don't know what you mean by privileged kids, because privileged kids, what is Chase Elliott? What is Joey Logano? What is Ryan Blaney? I can keep going down the top 20 in points in the Cup Series, and they all came from the exact same thing. So I'm spot off on the fact that he did this tweet and didn't say specifically, Noah Gragson, go work on a race car, you'll appreciate it more, because that's what he was trying to say.
TJ, what do you think?
Man, Brett's got a good point. There's even coming up through, it takes money to race no matter what, whether it's a go-kart, whether it's a late model, street stock, it costs money to race. And whether they start there, which most of them do start at the lower series, but they start off with a lot of great equipment. And that's not the way, like, when I started racing, we worked on my car in my backyard, and we couldn't work on it if it was raining because we didn't have a garage. It was literally on 4 blocks in my backyard in the grass. Had one grain scale and 3 other blocks when we were going to scale it. It took us like 3.5 hours to scale the car because we'd have to do the math every time we weighed each corner. I don't think many have to do things like that, but it's not their fault that they're in that situation. But I do appreciate the kids more that put more time in and appreciate it and don't just rip fenders off because they're mad at somebody or tear the car up, because they're not the ones that have to go back and fix it. Whenever, when you short track racing, like the locals, when they tear their stuff up, they got to fix it, and it costs them money. And a lot of guys they can't get that new fender every week. When I would rip the right front of the late model off or dent the right front fender, I had to go there to take the fender off, take it over the 8 shop, and roll it in the English wheel because we weren't Dale Jr. Couldn't afford a new one. But it was good to learn lessons like that, and a lot of these kids don't have them. They just haven't had to do a lot of that stuff. So there's kind of I see both sides of it, but I don't think it's their fault a lot of the times. That's the situation they're in.
Yeah, I mean, and like Brett said, everybody's got a trail, and everybody's dad can carry them to X amount of level. Bubba's dad funded his racing career up until we got to the K&N series, and then we got the diversity deal, but that was as far as Bubba's dad could take Bubba. Somebody's dad might get him a super late model and that's it, or somebody's dad could pay for an ARCA ride, who knows? But like Noah's dad can fund him pretty much anywhere he wanted to go, or Noah's family anyway. So that's not Noah's fault, but like you said, it's. We talked about it last week. Noah is very polarizing, and he makes himself easy for people to take shots at him like this because of his attitude sometimes and the way he treats. And even like just going back at the end of the week and listening to him say, "I wouldn't have done anything differently." I mean, nothing. You wouldn't have done nothing differently. I think you would probably should have done something differently if you wanted to win the race. But it is what it is, and it's like you said, it's guys that yes, there's some guys that may put in more time. There's guys that might work harder, but they're all in the same boat. They've all come from some kind of privileged background, and there's
Mike gets paid, Freddie. Mike Joy gets paid to cover these drivers that he's insulting. Like if you and I got out a pen and a sheet of paper right now, we went down the list. The majority of guys in the Cup Series have wealthy fathers.
Oh, 100%. And there's nobody, and I'll put this across Cup and Xfinity. Like, reach out to us if you are the guy that bought your own mini stock and went racing on Saturday nights and worked your way up to Matt Ladder or street stocks and then local late models, whatever it is, and earned your own sponsors, because I don't know of that guy in the sport. You know what I mean? I know guys have worked up them levels, but it's usually with some kind of family money, and then they either get a sponsor along the way or, hit on something right. But people are going to bring up Kyle Larson. Well, Kyle Larson was funded by a lot of people behind him, the Abruz, a lot of people helped Kyle Larson along the way. Christopher Bell had help along the way. These guys, there's nobody out there that doesn't have some kind of trail of money behind them to, you want to call them entitled, whatever it is, but it's, they've earned it or it's a family deal. But, I don't understand going after these guys when it's not like Noah's not the only one by any means.
And it's not.
No.
It just might not be as broadcasted, but there are guys that have investors from the time they were little they're just not promoted or their names are not on the car. I could name quite a few. So I think he is just more vocal, and so it comes out in a different light, I would say.
Every driver has a little bit of money behind them somewhere to get to where they are today. Like, there's something like what Freddie said, though. Some of them can only carry them so far. So along the way, you have to build them relationships and impress people and do things like that. And that's kind of like what Ross has done, in my opinion. He didn't have the most money of all the kids coming up. He had a little bit, but he impressed the right people.
We love our presenting sponsor, OfferPad. It's the easiest way to sell your home. Go visit them today and select the NASCAR tab on the How Did You Hear About Them section.